Hello my dear friends, welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking about a brand new announcement, which at face value some might say is very good news, but as you're going to see, there is more to it than meets the eye. One of the most baffling decisions I think Lucasfilm has ever taken is to decide after the sequel trilogy, we're going to make another Rey movie. Despite the backlash to episodes 7, 8 and 9, we're going to make another sequel movie. And not just the one. After some shuffling around, they decided they needed another trilogy, and they're giving this one to Simon Kinberg. And it's believed that he's going to be making episodes 10, 11 and 12, and they're going to be separate to the Rey movie. And so when this came out, fans were like, what are they thinking? We clearly prefer stuff like The Mandalorian, Andor, anything good that moves away from the Skywalker saga, because we don't want to be reminded of the sequel trilogy. But then, my dear friends, within like a 2-week period, something very interesting happened. Lucasfilm announced a bunch of different sequel-related things, which are all intended to erase and replace our perception of those movies. Not by decanonizing them, I'm not saying that. Those movies are here to stay. But instead of ignoring them, they're doubling down with additional content. I mean, just think about it. They realize they can never undo the damage to Luke, Rey's story being all over the place, so instead, they're doing damage control, not by ignoring them, but by doubling down. Let's run through this. From the word go, Jon Favreau said, the Mandoverse is filling in the gaps between episodes 6 and 7. The Force Awakens is the endpoint. We've seen the build-up in The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and more is going to be done in The Mandalorian and Grogu, and probably the Dave Filoni movie as well. Project Necromancer, Hux's dad, Luke's temple, the Praetorian Guards, they're really slowly building up to it. And even in the recent comics, we finally saw the birth of Ben Solo. I reckon it's just a matter of time until they introduce that on screen. And then also, my dear friends, amidst all of the Star Wars movie announcements, they finally decide to do a comic adaptation of Episode 9, which by the way just so happens to include deleted material they think fans would have liked. Remember what I said about them trying to change our perception of the sequel trilogy, adding context, filling in the gaps, and trying to make them look better. In addition, a Kylo Ren comic, and a brand new sequel era Jedi introduced in a manga. Are you seeing the pattern here? They're not going to retcon or decanonize the sequel trilogy, but they're trying to change fan perception of it. And the biggest part of this plan are the upcoming films. So while we're baffled, and fans are saying why are they doing this? Why more Rey? Why more Daisy Ridley? And why more stuff in this era? Because in addition to the damage control, they're making a new Rey trilogy under Simon Kinberg, and this time they're hoping fans like it. It might sound a bit lazy, but their logic is we've already done so much with these characters. Merch, parks, movies, books, you name it. If we can create a trilogy that is better received than the sequels with the same characters, maybe fans will finally get on board with them. And that's why I think John Boyega's been appearing at conventions, and Oscar Isaac is coming to Star Wars Celebration. I reckon they're going to bring back Rey, Finn, Poe, Rose, and maybe even the ghost of Ben Solo, who knows?
I'm like, I didn't realize that, I wasn't crying or anything, but I might as well have just been sobbing and no one, I didn't know it. I feel like we're going to go back to work and, do another one.
So I think what's happening, I think the best way to explain what's been going on is, aside from it being a really bad business decision, they figured instead of shying away, instead of moving away from the sequel trilogy, let's try to make sequel content the fans actually enjoy. But here's the problem. Are Star Wars fans willing to give these characters and this era a second chance? Well, this is precisely the reason you're seeing A-listers like Ryan Gosling come into Star Wars. The strategy is to entice casual audiences, your average cinema goer, and Ryan Gosling is a massive name. It's also why there are so many rumors of other A-listers like Henry Cavill, Zendaya, being in talks with Lucasfilm. They want those big names. Is it going to work for them? I guess when the time comes, the box office performance is going to have to speak for itself. Well, consider this. Now that we've had about 5 or 6 years of Disney Plus Star Wars content, so I'm talking about the TV shows for just a moment, fans wonder, how come the quality of a television series doesn't correlate to the viewership? For instance, how come Skeleton Crew and Andor didn't perform as well as Kenobi or Book of Boba Fett? Of course, those shows released at very different times. There is obviously fatigue in the fandom. Many Star Wars fans walked away from the franchise. But generally speaking, why would something like Kenobi, or even if they made a Darth Vader TV show, do better than something like Andor, which is more profound? because there is something to be said, and you might disagree with me on this, about familiarity, whether it's actors or characters, in the general casual audience. At the end of the day, fans know Vader, Kenobi, Boba Fett, the well-known familiar OGs, but they come across a trailer for something like Andor, Acolyte, Skeleton Crew, and like I say, quality issues aside, your general fan might think to themselves, well, I don't know the story, I don't know these characters, maybe I have to read some kind of book, maybe there's a lot of homework I have to do in advance, so I'm not going to check this out. And as simplistic and maybe reductionist as that sounds, most Star Wars fans aren't as diehard as you and me. They want the classic characters. So when they killed off Luke, and beforehand in The Force Awakens, Han, that did more damage to the Star Wars IP than fans realize. I think those were defining moments. And so I think it's safe to say, to bring back the character of Rey, to bring back other characters fans may not be too keen about, you do need something more of a hook. And the likes of Ryan Gosling, Henry Cavill and some of the others we've spoken about are probably going to be a good thing. Because maybe you see the trailer for the movie and you know nothing about it, but you know your friends and family say, oh, did you see Ryan Gosling's going to be in Star Wars? And you know if you make him a badass Jedi or a Sith, that's immediately more marketable. So I think there is a wider strategy. But let me make one thing clear, I don't think this is going to go the way they think. And it would have been so much smarter to create a new story that is completely separate. That's why the prospect and premise of James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi is so promising. But even that's now in trouble. Invest in new characters and a new time period, even if that means taking a loss for a while as it gains traction. Star Wars needs change. No matter which way you look at it, in spite of a few very good projects, generally speaking they've really dropped the ball and they don't learn from their mistakes. And so, in a sense, I really do think Disney is abandoning the first sequel trilogy and putting all their eggs into what's coming after it. And with all of that said, my dear friends, we do have another big announcement that ties into all of this. Disney officially abandons its Star Wars Land timeline strategy. A few days ago, we spoke about the big Luke Skywalker Galaxy's Edge announcement. Luke Skywalker, the hero of the galaxy, the one we saw in The Mandalorian and in the expanded universe, and not Jake Skywalker, is coming to Galaxy's Edge. But we didn't yet know what it was for. It was just a teaser, just a taste. Well now, my dear friends, Disney has made a huge announcement. They're no longer just making Galaxy's Edge about the sequel trilogy. In fact, they're now focusing it on the Skywalker saga. This is the one in California, not Florida. In sharing you details about Disneyland's annual Season of the Force event, the Disney Parks blog announced a new projection show for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge titled Shadows of Memory, coming March 28th. And here is the official description. Stunning projection effects transform the spires of Batuu near the Millennium Falcon, evoking memories of some of the greatest moments in galactic history, as an iconic musical score comprised of familiar themes from John Williams draws the audience into the legendary story of the Skywalkers. So like I said, Lucasfilm is finally changing the script. The big focus is on the Skywalker family, and if you take a look at this concept art, you can see Batuu and a projection of Anakin and Padme's wedding from Attack of the Clones. Fans say The Last Jedi is an underrated Star Wars movie. I don't know what they're smoking, because I think Episode 2 is truly the most underrated of all of the Skywalker saga films. And this is really significant. It blows my mind they didn't do this from the start. If you want a Star Wars theme park, it's got to focus on every era. I'm not advocating for the erasure of the sequels because I know some fans like them, but there should be something for everyone. But for the longest time, they seem to have been moving away from those aspects the old fans liked. I know this is just for one Season of the Force event, but it could certainly lead to something bigger. So is the no timeline thing a new Disney trend? I don't know, but this is definitely a start. Definitely a move in the right direction. But with that said, my dear friends, I want to know what you guys think. What do you think about Lucasfilm's strategy for the sequels, and I guess the sequels to the sequels? Is it a good idea? Yes or no? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, guys. And if you enjoyed this one, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, show me some love in the comments. Check me out on socials at StarWarsMeg1 on X. The link to my Patreon is down below, and I have a very exciting announcement coming very soon. But until the next one, my dear friends, may the Force be with you, always.